The San Francisco Register used to be the leading newspaper of the Pacific Coast. Tsar Attack aperitifs are very touchy, and Geordi wants to play a game of chess with Data later. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 5, Episode 26. Story by Joe Menosky, teleplay by Joe Menosky and Michael Piller, rest in peace. And this was directed by Sirach's pal, Les Landau. This was June 13th, 1992. Where were you? I was enjoying summer vacation, that's for damn sure. How you doing today, Sirach?
Doing great. We're pretty on schedule, because
Yeah.
Yesterday was June 13th.
Yeah.
Crazy
I love it when it kind of lines up, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, we're lining up in our own time zero.
So everybody, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that. And join us on Patreon. Be a supporter, be a pal. Patreon.com/the7th-rule. Once again, that's patreon.com/the7th-rule. We'd be really excited if you did. All right, Sirach, this is your first time ever seeing this episode. Did you have any idea that this was a two-parter when you first watched it? Because I don't think it says part one.
That gave it away. It did say part one when I.
Oh, it did. Okay.
On Paramount Plus, yeah. Thanks for the spoiler.
I know, because I don't think it originally was on IMDb. It just says Time Zero, and then the next one is Time Zero Part 2. I'm like, that's sneaky.
Yeah. No, I had an idea that it was a two-parter, but it's also season finale episode, so we've ended on Best of Both Worlds, part 1 and 2. We've had some series finales where there's a continuation story, so not that out of character for them.
Yeah, that's pretty much seems to be the MO now. The season finale is a two-parter, and that's what they do from here on out. Now, I'll be honest. Back in the day when I watched this, I was like, man, this episode sucks. I am not interested. I am not watching a sci-fi show when I'm a kid to see Mark Twain times. I'm not watching. I'm watching a sci-fi show for aliens and lasers and diplomacy and interesting theories and Geordi doing technobabble. I'm not watching this show to see the 1800s. Yeah. And that's how I remember it. I remember it being like, I remember when people mention Time Arrow, I roll my eyes. I go like, oh God, that one. And people love it. People love it. But that's how I felt about it back in the day. Maybe it's a little different today, but this was your first time seeing it. What'd you think?
Well, I'm not also the biggest fan of the period pieces, but in this particular case, I did like the fact that it started with the mystery. We opened with a discovery on Earth, looked like somewhere near the Starfleet Academy, because that's the shot that they cut to. So you're thinking, oh, okay, alien presence on Earth. It's funny because I thought of the Dominion when changelings had infiltrated Earth.
Totally, especially because there's Starfleet Academy right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like my first thought. Was like, oh, wait a minute, is this like a changeling? Home Front, I think was the name of the episode of Deep Space Nine.
Home Front of Paradise Lost. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, is this one of those scenarios where it's Next Generation's version of Home Front or Paradise Lost, where there's people living amongst them that have infiltrated the community essentially. But it wasn't that. It was more like a time detective, story where they open with the end. They open with the end of the story essentially, right? Data's head
True.
being discovered. And so I like when they give you the answer, and then you have to find out what the question is. You know,
Like
uh,
Rosebud.
so it's a
Rosebud.
mystery. Yeah, it's a mystery. And I'm up for a good mystery that has science fiction elements, and this definitely does have the science fiction and the mystery.
Yeah, and it also continues on the legacy of Guinan being like, I know something. Trust me on this, Picard. What do you know, damn it? Well, let's just say, no, let's not just say, just tell me. Like, like the best part was when she's like hinting, she's like, well, there's kind of something, whatever. And then Picard's like, Guinan, if you have something to say,
Yeah,
say it by all means, So she,
yeah,
it definitely, you could tell that these are seasoned TNG writers. It's not just people that kind of popped on because they know how Guinan acts. She gets a little coy. She kind of doesn't want to give you the answer. She wants you to figure out the answer, even if the answer can't be told. Like in this case, she's just kind of like, all I know is you need to be there. Figure the rest out for yourself. So
yeah.
that's really cool how they keep her consistent like that.
Yeah, that was also another pleasant surprise for me. You never know when Guinan's going to pop up in an episode because she's kind of irregular as far as her
Right.
appearances in these episodes. It's not like, oh, every other episode or every third episode. It's really random when you see Guinan. So it's a treat because she's, you know, such a tremendous actor, and she's able to, you know, drop in on the set while she's probably doing 1,000 other things in her life, and this is probably kind of an aside to her career.
Mm-hmm.
So when she comes in to bless us with a performance, it's because she's taking time out of her other things to stop and do some Star Trek for us. So I thought it was great to see her. I thought she was great in her performance. When she really digs into a performance and her, delivery of lines, it's so natural. She's very expressive on the face. Her eyes
Mm-hmm.
really tell the story. She's very coy. She plays the coy, like, I know more than I'm telling you, uh, very well. So yeah, I thought she was a big addition to this story being well told and a good watch.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually thought, and also she looked really good. She looked really pretty, and maybe she's pretty in every episode. For a second, I remember thinking, I was like, wow, maybe it's just because the outdoor lighting, this and that. And I was like, wait, no, this is got to be a set. Maybe I just need to be better. Just need to pay better attention. But I was like, wow, she looks amazing, or maybe it's just because I'm used to her always in the same garb. And when you get to see somebody, it was kind of like how, this is going to sound terrible, but then I won't use that example. I was going to say, it's kind of like when Garrick was in, it was like when Garrick was in a tux, you're like, wow, but then the same thing, like everybody on Deep Space Nine, when you put them in a tux or that you dress them up, suddenly you're like, oh, wow. Because usually it's kind of tough to look your best in a uniform or in a Star Trek thing. But when you get dressed in more contemporary things, or in this case, something from the past, suddenly you're like, damn, Cisco looks awesome. Or,
Right.
wow, Odo, Bashir, they all look great. Nana, right? And I kind of hit me, look, even kind of Data with this crazy tie. But anyway, so I was just like, wow, I'm glad that they gave people an opportunity to get dressed up and look super sharp because it totally worked. It kind of takes you out of the normal humdrum. So then I started kind of thinking, okay, maybe I'm okay with these 1800s. If they can, because I'm sure they probably loved it. Let me ask you this. When the set of Deep Space Nine, the cast, when you guys were able to dress in something new and really look sharp rather than, these uniforms that you may or may not have liked, was there a little bit of a buzz about it? Were people excited about it? Or even like baseball uniforms?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's it's a standard thing, where people feel a certain type of way when they get a chance to dress differently. I think that you have also people that do like casual Fridays, and you have people that are excited to be dressed up for casual Friday. So they're like, oh, okay. And it's that one day of the week where you're not all stiff in a suit and you're not, in your normal stuff. So, it is part of seeing our characters in a different light. It is fun to play dress up. Playing Star Trek is dress up in one way, but playing dress up in a different way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think people enjoy it. I think it allows them to expand and play with their character a little bit more when they're in some other piece. I felt like a little bit of level of looseness to the way that Guinan was portrayed, for example, in this period. So the Guinan that we see in the 1800s, I think just because of the wardrobe and the outfits, it seemed like she was more active and less reserved. It was like more like, especially when she was playing along with Data when he came in and said, "Yeah, I know you.
That was exactly it. Yeah, that's when I was like, wow, kind of looks amazing." And you're right. It's because she was just acting. Look, she's amongst humans that expect her to be a human, so she has to act a certain way. When she's on a starship, she can be reserved, she can be herself. But yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that she was kind of portraying a different character in the 1800s Earth.
Yeah, or she has a different tonality to her character. It was a little bit looser, it was a little bit less reserved, in my opinion, than how she acts when she's on the ship. She seems more measured. And there was a little bit of that measured approach when she, was talking to the Mark Twain, Mr. Clemens guy, and kind of refuting his debate about the age of the Earth and all of those things. She kind of was coy in her usual coy Guinan way of like, well, maybe it's older, and maybe there are more planets out there, and so she did it in that moment. But then when Data came in and turned everything upside down, that's when you got to see a little bit more of a mischievous, like, yeah, let's go over here and talk about it really quickly. And there was a little bit more playfulness to her character.
Yeah, and I do remember switching gears a bit. I remember the Frenchman joke. I remember.
I was going to ask you about that because obviously I thought about you. I was like, is he offended by the Frenchman joke?
Nah, I feel like I'm like most people in that we like it when we get razzed. It's like when you, for example, there's Russell Peters. I don't know if you've heard of the Russell Peters. He's like a really funny Indian stand-up comedian. And all he does is destroys every race on the planet, right? And it gets to the point where you're like, do me next. Do French people or do Indian, like do Taiwanese people. Come on, get us, Yeah. And then you find yourself going, that is so us. So it's kind of like that where I like the shout outs. I like it when people make fun of French people on a TV show or a stand-up comedian because it's just kind of fun to, you get it. Like, so I liked it. I like the Frenchman joke, especially because it is kind of harmless fun. What are they saying? They're not saying, oh, these guys surrender way too much. And I'd be like, all right, easy. That's enough. But,
that's too close to a nerve.
But in this case, it's cool. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a funny joke, especially when you pair it together with the period. And it's like, nobody knows what a Frenchman really is, essentially, right? They're like, I don't know. He looks like he's French. Okay, is that how they dress? Do they walk around with spandex suits on? So
all right, he's got us pegged there a little bit, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, these are stereotypes and they're tropes. I think it was funny and well played. I also thought of you when I heard 49ers. Can you help a 49er out? And I was like, gosh, this episode's full of Ryan's favorite things.
I know. Why am I hating on this episode so bad? They're talking about French people, 49ers. They're in San Francisco. That's all good stuff, man.
Yeah, I was waiting for a black licorice shot out for the
Wait till
full
the next
trifecta.
episode. Somebody's better pull it out. That'd be great. There was licorice back in the 1800s, right? There's got to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they had it. But yeah, it was a good start to the episode. I really enjoyed, for example, in the open when Data is doing the whole description of what he's seeing. He's disappeared now into the ether, and we just hear his voice, and we get really nice shots of the captain listening, of other people listening, to Data as he's describing what he's seeing. And I was really locked in at on that description. I was like, what the hell is he seeing? These 3 to 4 meter. What did he say?
Yeah.
They're 2 to 3 meters in height, silver, gray in color. No eyes or ears are noticeable. He was going through a real description.
Although I did notice some eyes pretty easily, Data. You're slipping, bro. Just saying
Yeah, I
that.
did that. Yeah, maybe something was obstructing his view. Then he said a single orifice where the forehead would be. So he was really giving a good description. Uh, and then they mentioned Orphidian, and we talked about an Orphidian before? Or is that
No, I think that might just be like an actual word for a snake or something. I'll look that up. But
okay?
like, yeah, that was the thing. Was I actually, to your point, I found that to be gripping. Like it's kind of like for horror movies or thrillers, they're like, what you don't see is scarier than what you do see. And so Data describing this, like if we just saw these big lumbering guy, blah, 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 with this thing, we'd be like, oh, that's cool. But to hear Data describing it, we're like, oh, that's kind of scary. Like, and we're all tense, and it's showing and it's not showing what he's seeing right away. It's showing Riker and Troy, and they're like, tweaking out. Worf was probably like reaching for his phaser. He's like, I'll shoot the air where they used to be. But yeah, to your point, that's good stuff. Yeah, Ophidian. I did hear him say that, and then afterwards, it looks like it means reptile. Okay, so it's not just snake, but reptile. And then that's why he said, middle of the episode, he said, I'm looking for 2 people and a snake. And I was like, what? Right. Did I miss something? What do you mean 2 people and a snake? But then at the end there, we see that very real looking snake that didn't at all look like somebody's hand.
No.
So that was the mystery was solved there. But I thought that was really cool that they didn't tell us the answer right away. They dropped another mystery there. And then when we saw that Muppet, we're like, oh, that's the Ophidian. That's the guy we're talking about.
Yeah. Like I said, it started out really great with the mystery. I enjoyed that, that opening scene. I like Data kind of giving us a description, and then boom, he's lost, and now the mystery begins. And of course, it's like a snake eating its tail. We know the end of the story, right? Can't hear you, but we know the end of the story, but not the
Ouroboros is the snake eating its tail. Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, we know where it's going to go, and we've now launched into it. I thought it was a nice line that Captain Picard talked about in that scene he had with Data when Data basically tells him, you can't cheat fate. Essentially saying nothing that you do can, alter the outcome that we already know. So not going on the mission, whatever you decide, it's still going to end. We know how it's going to end 500 years later. So I thought, hey, that's a pretty good, analogy, whether you can cheat fate or not. I thought that's just interesting enough, because when people think, oh, well, if you know that you're going to, get hit by an airplane or die in an airplane crash, then you say, well, I'm not going to fly any airplanes, right? And then I should avoid that fate. Except that you don't know how that, fate is going to play itself out.
Right. It's really weird because it feels like you should be able to, like what you're saying. You just say, okay, well, I won't go on an airplane For how long? Forever. Then how are you going to die in an airplane? I don't know, but it seems like that's just kind of what things how they tend to work out. And to that, that's why when Riker goes, Data, or he's like, Geordi, Troy, Worf, every single person in the world except Data, come with me. And Data's like, Commander. And then Picard kind of like is lying. He's like, oh, we need you on the ship for you need to study analysis or say push buttons. It is like, all right, bro. And then afterwards, when he's talking in person, and what did he put? He says it is customary for the second officer to be a part of these away missions. Like, you do know that. And he says, yes. And then he says, then this must be because you're worried I'm going to get killed or whatever. And he says, there is no rational justification for this. And Picard's like, then I'll be irrational. Like, it's so funny how they're all so sad about Data, and Data doesn't care. He's like, what are you doing? Like, I got to go.
Yeah. And it's funny because, he's the one that they thought had immortality, right? Or essentially would outlive everybody as long as they can keep his processor functional. But, everybody else was more concerned with his mortality than he was, which was interesting in itself. And I did like that discussion that he had with Data when it comes to the duties of the second officer, and I'm supposed to be on this away team. And it seemed like they contradict themselves as far as what I know to be the Star Trek historical record when they said that captains don't go on away missions. I think that was a topic of discussion later.
Absolutely. Totally. Yep.
And I'm like, wait a minute. I remember Kirk going on.
That's why they say, Kirk was the most roguish, because you're not supposed to go on an away mission. He went every time, and he'd always be like, oh, whoops, I forgot my shirt. They're like, if you're going to go on away missions, Captain, at least keep your shirt on, bro, like, and wear a belt or something if you can't keep your pants on. But yeah, so that's that, because I really think that's at least in universe. But the real world reason is just because they came up with that rule after the original series of Star Trek. Afterwards, when they're like, look, we can't have Captain Picard running around punching and drop kicking monsters and humping chicks. Like, that's for Riker to do. So we'll make this rule. So I'm pretty sure that rule came after. They might have mentioned it on original series, but I don't think so.
I've seen too many away missions with Kirk. I think he was the main away mission guy
every time. Yep.
So yeah, they definitely revised the rules. It appears, as far as canon is concerned. But I was okay with it. It definitely served the purpose of the story, especially in the moment where Guinan is basically saying, "You have to go," and I can't explain why. Well, she did explain. She said, "Otherwise, we would have never met," and so that was her way of explaining. Telling him the biggest clue that she could tell. It's like, everything will change if you don't do it. So I thought that was interesting as well.
It is interesting, and it does make you wonder what Picard was thinking when she said that, because that could mean a million things when we're talking about time travel, when we're talking about anomalies and 0.004 variances. He's like, what does that mean? Does that mean if I don't go, you're going to die, or I'm going to die? We'll never meet, really doesn't know. But the one thing he does know is like, well, I guess I better go on this away mission for whatever reason. Speaking of away mission, we're going to go away right now, everybody, and take our break. It's kind of like a two-part. It's going to be like part 2, the 7th rule, part 2, coming up. We'll be right back on the 7th rule.